Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks. I'm your host, Roberta, and today we're serving up something extra sweet as we sit down with the incredible Camille Bell, co founder of Poundcake, a beauty brand that's shaking up the industry with bold inclusivity and unapologetic style. Camille's mission to create products for every shade and undertone has made waves, and I can't wait to hear more about her story. Welcome, Camille.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more. So let's just dive in.
Yeah, yes, please.
Can you share a bit about your journey before starting Pound Cake? What did your life look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started Poundcake like 3 months after I graduated from Temple University. I was a double major. I had majored in PR as well as general business with a minor in African American studies. And, during this time, I had always been interested in makeup and a makeup enthusiast. And so my senior year, I had some free electives and I took a makeup course. It was a pretty intense makeup course. It wasn't just like, you know, the basics of learning how to put on makeup, but we also learned the difference between doing stage makeup and makeup for TV and then special effects makeup. And I think, deepened my love for makeup even more. So at this point, I was about to graduate and I was just thinking about, what I want to do the rest of my life. And I just was like, whatever I do, I really want to be happy. I just don't want to be stuck at a job for like 20, 30 years, not doing something I love. And I feel like this would be the time to, I don't know, embark in my passion and kind of go for it. And so, yeah, by the time I had graduated, I was fully engulfed in all things makeup. However, I was, going to retailers and being really disappointed in the offerings. And then even like the advertising, not really seeing a lot of people that look like me. I would go to swatch on products and it either would disappear into my skin as if I never swiped a product on, or the color that showed up on me did not look like the color that was advertised. And I was like, oh, it's because these cosmetic companies are kind of like, okay, we'll have, white folks first. And then everyone kind of is just left to the wayside. Like if it works for you and you're darker skin, great.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, like, too bad. And so I started just complaining about this to my friends and they were like, you should do something about it. And so, yeah, it was kind of alignment of just, I was graduating. I was like, okay, I'm about to embark on my career post grad. These are the years, in your 20s to like really kind of go for it. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. That's a long winded answer to what I was doing before I started Poundcake.
I love that. The fact that you found kind of a need out there that was based around what you already were, loving from the classes that you were taking in school, and then saying that you could do it yourself. Not many people, especially people just getting out of college, can think that they can take, on such a task. So it's definitely commendable.
Thank you. I
Had you
really appreciate that.
Yeah. Had you always thought about entrepreneurship even before you started kind of diving into makeup and getting a love there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, the answer is yes, which is why I kind of went into like the general business track at Temple University. At the time that I was going, they had an entrepreneurship department, but I don't know, it felt like, what can I really do with like an entrepreneurial degree per se? And so I knew one day I wanted to be in business. And so I went the general business track. And so, yeah, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Even back to my childhood, my siblings and I would have like a lemonade stand. I used to make these like really shitty string bracelets and walk around my cul-de-sac and charge people like 25, 30. I think I went up to like 50 cents and just would knock on the door and ask if they wanted to. It's kind of like wild looking back, but like, yeah, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so, yeah, when I was in high school and just thinking about, okay, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Or at least what do I want to major in college? I was like, well, I definitely should do something in the business route because, yeah, I had that a little bit of self-awareness at the time of, okay, yeah, I definitely know I'm going to go into business. I don't know how, but yes, I definitely had that knowledge before college.
So once you determine kind of this is the category, avenue that I want to dive deep into and build something around, what were next steps for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I did was I was part of it's called Temple Student Government my senior year, and so I we had an advisor for Temple Student Government, and I was speaking to him. He was the director at the time at Temple, and I was just like, I'm about to graduate. I was telling him about my entrepreneurial dreams and aspirations, and he was like, "Well, did you know Temple has a launch pad, an incubator for current students, faculty, and alumni? And so considering you're about to graduate, you should check it out. It's a really great program." And so it's called Blackstone Launchpad. And so I went there and I met with the folks there. It was a very small team of two incredible women. And I told them my dream, and they were like, "Okay, we gotta," like, from the first meeting I had with them, it was like, "You need to think of a name of your brand. You need to get the domain. You need to get business cards from Staples. They don't even have to be good." It was just like this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so it was really amazing because, tapping into those resources, even though I was an alumni, the Blackstone Launchpad, allowed me opportunities like to get my domain for free, as well as, you had to file trademark for your name. So to ensure that, you're protecting your assets, and which is something I wouldn't have known, I graduated when I was 21. And so they were like, "Yeah, we have a partnership with a really big law firm here in Philly, and they filed our trademark for free." Pretty much the incubator just had a lot of partnerships that you could tap into. And yeah, the director there at the time, Julie Stapleton Carroll, she was like, "Okay, we got to get you to a beauty conference." And she started Googling them, and she was like, "Can you go to New York?" And, I had never gone to New York by myself. And I was just like, yeah, I can do that. And so I booked a Greyhound, bus ticket, and went from Philly to New York. And that was my first like makeup conference. I got some business cards from Staples and just put like the name Poundcake, my name. And I don't even think I had a Poundcake email yet. I think it was just Gmail, and went to New York and networked with some vendors. And that's kind of how I was able to get started officially, was through the work with Blackstone Launchpad.
That's great to have some people that can help early guide you and give you, the basics of even just how to get a business started. I think is so important and impactful to anybody, especially to your point, just coming out of school and really not even knowing all of the things you need to do in order to make sure that you're starting correctly. So how did you come up with the name Pound Cake?
Yeah, so so she sent me home, and I was like, "Hey, I got to think of a name." And I was just sitting on the floor, like in my apartment, and I was just like, okay, for like 3 days, I was trying to think of a name, and I was like, I don't know. At first, it was like Caked. I think I did a quick Google search, and I think I saw someone else that had like a startup with that similar name, and I I landed on Poundcake. I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I did some searches, didn't really see anyone using that at all. And I was like, "Okay, Poundcake." And then we started thinking about it more and found out that in the early 1900s, there was a booming product called cake makeup. And a lot of women in the industry were using this product. However, this was a time when, white women were pretty much the only ones being acknowledged in the beauty industry. I was like, when I was thinking about it and what we want to represent with our brand, what do I want people to know about Poundcake? What do I want people to feel? It really didn't align with cake makeup and things going on during that time period. And I was like, okay, how about we should disrupt break and we're just trying to think of synonyms for that old way of thinking, and we're like pound cake. And so that's kind of the backstory on how we got our name.
I love that.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, and I love that too because pound cake, you think of it as, the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is like pound cake, right? But
Right.
to hear that there's really a lot of meaning and stability behind the name, I think just
Mm-hmm.
is important for people to understand and hear, especially
Thank
now,
you.
especially during this time.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So you took your first trip to New York by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go by yourself?
Mm-hmm. I
Okay.
did. I
Figured
did.
figured out how to get to this beauty show. Do you remember what it was called?
Yeah, Makeup in New York. And it's still an ongoing conference that a lot of people in the beauty industry attend. They have Makeup in New York, Makeup in LA, and I think Makeup in Milan, I believe. But yeah, it's still an ongoing conference every year that I still get invited to
Yeah.
attend.
So once you were there and you started meeting with vendors, did you have prepared questions? Did you know exactly what you wanted to build at that point and honing specifically on lipstick?
Yes, I knew at that time I wanted to start with lipstick. I wanted to start with lipstick, and so I knew that I needed to find a supplier that could do this. And so when I was there, I was speaking to a lot of CMs, contract manufacturers. So they were pitching me. A lot of them were like, "Oh, we have stock formulas." And that's what a lot of brands do when
Yeah.
they first launch, because it's a lot of capital up front. And I I would ask them to, I provided my address and I started, kind of collecting samples, and they were just really shitty. And I was just like, I just don't feel comfortable. If I'm saying pound cake is the solution, one, I felt strongly that it did need to be a custom formula. And number two, the products that I was getting, they were still adhering to the problem I was trying to solve. So they're sending me these red lipsticks, and I'm like, they're sheer. They're not showing up. They look orange on me. So I know folks who are a lot darker than me, it's going to look a mess, and it just wasn't good. And so that was kind of the first roadblock I ran into in my journey, because going the custom route is very expensive. And so that kind of moves to the next phase of my journey, which is I'm going to need some capital, like serious
Mhm.
capital. And so yeah, and then that's, I guess, the next part of my story where, my co-founder and I were like, we started applying to pitch competitions in Philly as well as New York, just trying to pitch our idea and get any type of funding. And we, our first pitch competition we ever did, it was for $500. It was called the Idea Competition. And it was actually perfect because it was like all I had at the time was just an idea.
Yeah.
And so it was a great way to test out, okay, this is an idea, and if you can win, then maybe you do have something there. And we ended up winning the Global Initiative Award, and it was for $500.
Your first pitch?
Yeah,
Wow.
my first pitch ever. We won. And thanks to my partner Johnny, he created this like really awesome animation because I wanted to stand out, and I knew no one would really have an animation. I'm a visual learner, and so I was like, I need people to visualize what I'm saying, and he created this really cool animation showing like how we have different skin tones and how color affects the way color can, depending on your skin tone, affects the way color shows up. We need to show that. And so, it wasn't just me pitching, but also this great video that he put together. And yeah, we ended up winning. Now, $500, it, it was, it was like a good amount at the time, but I even knew it wasn't a lot. And so I ended up buying a laptop because I didn't have like a quality laptop at the time. And so I ended up buying a laptop with that as an investment. And then, yeah, from there, we started applying to more pitch competitions, which later then led us to doing an Indiegogo campaign where we raised a little over 20,000. I got a $10,000 grant, and then I was like, all right, cool. Now I have a little over 30,000. Now I can go to a lab and do a custom formula. And so that was kind of like the journey.
That's wild. I think, one, it's amazing that you, number one, won your first pitch competition, because some people say it takes, a couple of times to get comfortable and like, be able to speak in the way that you want to communicate to the people that are listening. So, I mean, definitely, applause for that. And then too, I agree. Like it's not $500. You think, can it get me to where I need to go? But I love how you took it to say, one, it's validating the fact that my idea is something that is needed in the world. And then two, that you did something smart with the money to kind of get started.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah. So once you so you did Indiegogo, you got enough money to support kind of that first custom look. Had you utilized one of the manufacturers or suppliers that you met in New York to get that started with your custom?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I didn't. It's interesting. I know this now, but at the time I did not know this. But the contract manufacturers that attend those shows, they're like, they're creating units for like L'Oreal and Estee Lauder. And so their minimum order quantities were just ridiculous, like 10,000 units, right? And at the time, I was like, 10,000 units? What? Like, oh my God, like, and so I wasn't able to go with any of them. I was just doing Google searches of cosmetic labs, because again, I was just like a recent college grad. I didn't know anything. And so I ended up finding our first lab, which was in Utah. And it was a newer lab. And they were like, we can create a custom formula. I told them I want a liquid lipstick, red, want 5 to 6 different shades. They're like, yeah, we love this. We can definitely do this. It'll be $7,500. And with that, in that fee, you'll also be able to own the rights to the formula. You'll have the exact breakdown. That was a scam. And I was ripped off.
Oh my gosh.
And after a year, I should have known, our first submission, my heart just sank. First off, it was pink, and it was like a stock liquid lipstick formula, but it was thin, and then it cracked and peeled off. And I was so confused. We were like, is this for someone else? Because first, why is it pink when we were working on reds? Number one. And number two, this isn't anything of what we said. And then the next submission, we would have to wait 4 to 5 weeks per submission, that was a lot. And yeah, they were just all over the place. They didn't know what they were doing. And then by the end of it, after a year, I had even flown out to Utah.
God.
I flew out to Utah and I was like, we're going to get this done. And the best we got was just it was red. It was kind of creamy, but after an hour on your lips, it would just crumble off. I could wipe my lips and it was little pieces of paper just fell down.
Gosh.
And yeah, they're like, well, we really specialize in deodorants. And I'm like, what? That's not what you said. Even, Blackstone Launchpad had to help and get on a call, and it was all of us. And, after I think a year and a half, I felt just so bad. I felt really guilty because I had gotten donations from Indiegogo,
Yeah.
We had raised over 20,000, and here I am, I'm supposed to be launching soon, and I'm pretty much at square one. And so then we found a second lab, and again, each time we were learning from our mistakes, right? So we were like, okay, this time we're gonna ask for samples first of things they've done, and if we like it, maybe not necessarily for us, but if it's okay, this is quality, then we'll go with them. And so we asked another lab I found in Canada, pretty good reviews. So we checked reviews this time, and they sent us some products that they had on hand, stock formulas that were pretty good. And we're like, okay. So we gave them the formula that we did have, and they started working off of that, and we got it down. And then we started working on the colors, and this is kind of where it fell apart. I won't bore your audience listeners because I could be here for hours talking, but long story short, Johnny and I are very finicky. We're both perfectionists. I would definitely say Johnny is maybe a little higher on the spectrum of perfectionism, and we just really wanted to ensure that regardless of someone's skin or lip tone, and they got it from Poundcake, that it was doing all these things that we said it was going to do. And it's a big thing. It's a big deal. And, we're two Black kids coming to this lab, in Canada, and in their eyes being difficult because we're not liking the colors. And we're like, hey, it looks orange. Like, we just tested these on some dark skinned folks and it looks orange. We need you to tweak it. And, the owner of the lab would be like, this is absolutely ridiculous. We've never had a client. Blah, blah. And I was like, well, yeah, number one, we're Black. So yeah, I believe you never had a client like us before. And number two, we're offering something that's never been done before. So yeah, you need to have some patience. We have to get this done the right way. And then COVID hit. So the lab shut down for like months. And then they opened back up to like make hand sanitizer. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2020, like everybody was launching hand sanitizer. And then, yeah, I ended up calling about something. I forget. I was going to ship our vials there. No, I had already shipped our vials there because we were getting close to about to go in mass production. We were almost finished like the last color. And so I called to be like, hey, did you guys get the shipment? And he was like, yeah, but did anyone talk to you yet? And I was like, no, what? And he was like, we're dropping Poundcake as a client. And my heart just sank. And it literally was, I think it was like 3 days before my birthday. And it was just like, oh, my heart just sunk. And I was like, what? Like, he's like, well, we have a bigger client, our chemist, she's threatening to leave. It was just a little too much. They were really misorganized. They only had one chemist doing all of their clients. Like, she didn't have like an assistant or anything. And they're like, she doesn't want to work on this anymore. And obviously they're going to keep her over us, rightfully so. That makes sense. But yeah, we were just devastated. We're like, well, can we get the formula? And at first he said no. And we're like, well, what do you mean no? We've been working for a year and, if you're going to drop us, we need to go somewhere else. Can you give us a formula? During this time, just so everyone has an idea of where we were at, we had just gotten accepted into Glossier's cohort for small Black owned businesses, like their inaugural cohort, the first year they launched this. And we were like, oh my God, we just got in this program for Glossier. Like, they just picked us and now we're going to have to start over again. And like, will we get kicked out of the program? And it was pretty catastrophic. And, luckily when we talked to the advisors at Glossier, they actually were really kind. They were like, this happened to us before, that they were at a lab, they were working on stuff. And then the lab was like, we got a bigger client. I'm sorry. So I was like, wow, if that can happen to Glossier, I can't believe, it's happening to us. But Glossier ended up helping us find lawyers because the lab did not want to give us the formula. They ended up giving us the formula, but it was half-assed. It didn't even equal 100, so they lied. And then we found our third lab, and it wasn't perfect, but we worked with them, they reformulated, and then we were finally able to get to launch. And so a lot of people do not know this, but it's like, even though Poundcake, we just completed our third full year in business, Johnny and I have been working on Poundcake for years because it took us quite some time to just get to launch because we had so many setbacks, because we don't come from money. And we were, Johnny was actually still in college, as we were working on this, and I had just recently graduated. So we were dead broke. And yeah, we had a lot of hurdles, but we did finally get to launch. And that's kind of the journey of like what we had to go through leading up to our launch.
How did you keep going with all of those setbacks?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I don't know. I know that's probably what your listeners want to hear, but like, I don't even know. I mean, they do say if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a very thin line between like insanity and insanity. And it's like, you have to be kind of like not all the way there to be like, to keep going, because there would be times I would like break down and cry. And I'm like, I've never heard when entrepreneurs tell their story, right? When they finally make it and they're successful, I hear about the struggles they went through when they launched the business, but I've never heard of this struggle just getting to launch. And I was like, maybe this is a sign. Like I used to always say, maybe this is a sign that we should not be doing this. Like, and then maybe something small would happen, like a week or two later, I'd be like, oh, okay. It was like little stuff like that kept me going. Because for a while, yeah, I was like, yo,
It's too hard.
It feels, yeah, or
Yeah.
it just felt like the universe was saying that this ain't it. You find something else to do. But maybe it was, sometimes when I look back, I'm like, maybe it was the universe testing me. Like, do you actually want this? Yeah, that, I know that's not necessarily helpful, but I think for me, yeah, it was just remembering why I started. And then, yeah, there would be like little, very tiny wins that kept me going.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw something on social media last week about like entrepreneurs need to live in like, I think she said like Delulu land, like, always
Yeah.
being delusional, like even if things are
Yeah.
going bad, like just believing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
the skies are going to open and it's going to be different and everything that you're looking for to create, will come to fruition.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. I definitely believe that.
Yeah. I think too, when you're creating something different that no one's ever seen before, you're going to get that pushback,
Yes.
that resistance, you know.
Yes. 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 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So once you were able to finally get a finalized product, were you late from delivering those initial orders to the Indiegogo consumers?
Yeah, we were like years late, but I was always giving updates throughout the time. And like, I think at the time we only had like, I don't know, like 500 followers on Instagram, but I was letting them know like, hey, this is what's happening. My friends and like the community I had, even though it was just 500, they were very involved. And I think that's why there wasn't like, no one ever made me feel bad that it was taking time, and I think it was because I was keeping everybody updated. I was like, here's a new sample. Like, it would be a video of me testing. We would do focus groups to nail down the shades. So I'd invite like Black women, makeup lovers in Philly to our co-working space. And I would buy like Poundcake, and that would be like a little snack. And, they would test the products and give us feedback. And so I would show that, things like that. If I went to a conference, I would take videos. So I think people, even though it was taking forever, I think me even just showing that, people are like, oh, wow, a lot does go into creating a brand. And so, yeah, I was late to answer your question. We finally did launch, but it was cool because we launched with an Allure Best of Beauty award. And so it was kind of like, launching with that award, or launching with an award like that before you even launch your brand, I think it was a testament to, that's why it took so long. And I felt proud to be like, thank you for your support and your donation. I do apologize. It took years after I said it was going to launch, but it is already award winning. And so I think people respected that as, just as much.
Yeah, yeah. And you had them following along on the journey, so they probably as well
Right.
just felt like they just accomplished something big as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So once you got that package finally of your product samples, I mean, what was the emotion like?
We were scared because we were still nervous, because going back to, Johnny and I being perfectionists, there were things in the formula like that I wasn't 100% about, but the, some of my close friends that had been with me throughout the journey were like, but it does this, it does this, it does this, it does this. It's clean. It's like Credo clean. It's certified. It's 100% custom. So just talk up the things that it does do. And so I was initially really, really nervous, but then we started getting really positive feedback. I think when we launched, we sold out in less than 48 hours. And so yeah, it was really, it then started becoming like exciting, and my anxiety subsided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, with you kind of launching and selling out within 48 hours, what was the prep for that? Did you do any early kind of marketing planning to ensure that you were going to get those consumers to purchase those first couple of days of selling?
Yeah, we have gotten that question a lot. Like, how did you do that? And even when we launched, we had to reach out to Shopify for something, and they were like, "Yeah, how do you guys have so many orders?" And the only thing I can think of was people had just they knew how long I had been working on this because I was documenting everything. So I think it was just news. Like she finally did it. Like they launched, they did it. And I think that's why I think people just want to support. And of course, I think Glossier had even like shared that we had launched. I can't remember if they shared when we came back in stock or when we officially launched. And we also had an email list that I was building up throughout the years. I had created just like a landing page where people could insert their email and just stay up to date on my journey. And I was just keeping them updated. And then, let them know, hey, we're going to be launching. I think the excitement of us being Glossier cohort, the excitement that we got an Allure Best of Beauty Award. So people are like, oh, this product must be really good.
Right.
Like who gets an award before they launch? Especially like Allure. And I think all of those things combined, that's what helped attribute to us selling out in less than 48 hours.
Yeah. And then once you had those sales and were able to deliver them and send them to your consumers, what were early responses? What were consumers saying?
Oh my gosh, we would get these like detailed reviews, like these paragraphs being like, I've been in the makeup industry for 15 years and I have never been able to find a red lipstick that works for me. This is the first red lipstick that has worked on me. And I don't know. It's just like, I think sometimes when we would go to pitch to investors who were predominantly white men, they would downplay what we were doing. Like, what you're doing, like, it's just a lipstick, right? It's like, yes and no. It's a lipstick or the way in which we're offering color cosmetics is not how the industry approaches color. They kind of just say it's universal, and we're actually anti that. Like, we do not believe in universal shades. And yeah, I think because during these interviews, they would downplay what we were doing and just be like, it's just a lipstick, that I think sometimes that would kind of seep into my head. And it wasn't until we would get these paragraphs that I'm like, oh yeah, like, no, it's not just a lipstick. It's that people, regardless of their skin and lip tone, can now feel comfortable wearing red because of Poundcake products and the way in which we offer color cosmetics. And yeah, I think that it was just, the reception was really great, at first. It really was.
That's great.
And it still is, I should say.
Yeah. And so that was back in 2021, correct?
Yes, at the very end of 2021.
So I guess my first question would be, did you have a retail strategy? Were you thinking at all about being in retail as you were building the brand and even finalizing the product? Or did you just think of this as being a D2C brand?
So going back to my early days with Blackstone Launchpad, and I really have to give credit to Julie because the Blackstone Launchpad, they really, like I said, I didn't know anything. I was 21 and just recently graduated. I just knew I wanted to have a cosmetic company. And so one of the things in the exercises she was having us do was, she was like, well, eventually you'll be in retail, right? And we were like, yeah. And she was like, yeah, whether that's Sephora or Ulta, if you want to go to Target, whatever, you have to think about your pricing. So how much are you going to sell it for? Because the exercises she was having us do were, our COGS, how much does it cost, and then how much we're going to sell it for. But then it has to be high enough that if and when we went into retail, you cut that in half. She was like, wholesale is usually 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to still make money. And so she had us do that exercise years ago. And so, yeah, we did. We always knew we would be in retail just by way of, the help that Julie provided to us years before. And then, yeah, when we launched, I think, so this was 2020. And so this is when people, I think, were still, no. I think actually people were starting to go back outside. That's what it was. And we were like, okay, people are going to start going to retailers more and start shopping in stores again. And I think D2C is going to become more expensive, more competitive. We really need to be in a retailer. And so that's when I started pitching. I would say 2022 is when I started pitching to both Sephora and Ulta buyers, by way of just LinkedIn, and then asking for some intros from people in my community. But no, I did know, to answer your question again, I did know very early on that we were going to be in retail.
Yeah. That's great too, that she gave you kind of the blueprint on margin, because a lot of
Yes.
brands don't think that way when they're building their product from the onset and then have those struggles once they're in store. So
Exactly.
She definitely gave you some some amazing knowledge.
That's why any interview I ever do, I always shout out Julie and Kate. They're both two incredible women that ran Blackstone Launchpad at Temple University.
Wow. Does that still exist?
It does. It does
Yeah.
still exist. I think Julie left last year, but it is still up and running. Yep.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you walk us through once you were starting to have those conversations between Sephora and Ulta and you were able to get that first pitch? What did that look like? How did you prepare for that?
How did I prepare for that? So at this point, I was a year past the Glossier cohort. However, I still stayed in contact with the mentors and advisors I was paired with. And so Poundcake was paired with, at the time, her name, Vanessa Whitman. She was the chief financial officer of Glossier, as well as Catherine, who was their lead legal person. And so we were paired with really great folks. I mean, everyone there is really nice, but Vanessa was the one who she was friends with someone on the board at Ulta. And so she was like, I really like Ulta. I think Ulta would be better for you guys than Sephora because I just love the way Ulta treats its brands and partners. So she was like, put together a deck and I'll look through it. And so she like gave us really great feedback, tore apart our deck. It was like, you need to have this in there, this in there. Where's this? Where's this? And so she was giving us feedback for, I think maybe it was like a month and a half. And then once that was done, she made the intro and reached out to her contact at Ulta. Then they invited me to pitch on Zoom. And at the end of my Zoom, I just was like, if we're too early, I understand, but if you have any programs, I heard you guys sometimes have some programs, for small startups, I would definitely I'd be interested in learning more. And so I think a month after that pitch, I got an email invite to apply to their first ever accelerator program. I was like, oh, wow. And so I applied, I interviewed with Ulta, and then we got in. And so this was August of 2022. And so the accelerator was great because I got to learn the ins and outs of retail. And I guess how Ulta differentiates their accelerator program, because, Sephora also has one, is that they were like, our program is just retail readiness. It's just about retail. And of course, like we'll bring people in brands who are, at Ulta, but the main focus was being retail ready. And so it was an amazing accelerator program that we went to be like, okay, like, what does it mean to be EDI compliant? Like, I've never even heard that acronym before. And now now it's like the back of my head, but
Right.
like, I didn't know that stuff. And then like, barcodes. We didn't have barcodes on our product. That's one thing. If you guys are starting, a business with physical products, make sure you get barcodes. But yeah, we were like, oh my God, we need barcodes. And what else? Do we need we need a 3PL. We had to find a 3PL. And what is a 3PL? It's just like all this stuff. And then, once you're in, people are like, that's the easy part, getting into retail.
Right.
Although, sometimes other people would argue that, but for the most part, people are like, that's the easy part, getting in. The hard part is staying. So then it was like talking to people and learning how to be successful. And so the amazing thing with the program was they also paired us with mentors. And so my mentor I was paired with was Shantae Lundy, who's the CEO of Black Girl Sunscreen.
Yeah.
And so she was my mentor. And she still is. Actually, she just texted me the other day, but she was my mentor for the program. And so we would have to have a mandatory hour meeting every week. And it was just my time where I got to just ask any questions of her and learn from her and her experience. And by the end, we did get a grant of $50,000, which was great. Because with these programs, it's like, I sometimes have gripes with these accelerators because I do feel like sometimes it's demeaning for Black and brown folks. Like a lot of the stuff we can network and learn, we can Google, but we need money. We really need money because I can learn anything, but I need money to apply what you're teaching me. And so it was really cool that they gave money at the end as well. But yeah, it was a really great program. And that's kind of where I learned the ins and outs of being retail ready.
Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity to learn out there through all of the cohorts and, programs that are out there that you can join and be a part of. But to your point, like, how do I get funding in order for me to really develop and grow and build my brand? Something that's needed a lot more. So once you finished that program, was that an automatic entry into Ulta shelves?
No, it was not. That's a great question. So at the end of the program, there was a pitch. I pitched to investors, but they made it known not that we weren't going to be taken seriously, but it wasn't a situation where they were going to open up their purses the way in which Ulta, at least for my year, it may have changed because they're now in their third year, but at least our year, it was just like, we're giving you an opportunity to pitch in front of investors and get feedback in real time. And then the second pitch was pitching to the Ulta beauty buyers. And, should you have gotten selected, then yeah, you would have the opportunity to launch in stores. And so it was not a given. And I didn't necessarily think we were going to get in because, throughout the program, we had gotten some feedback on our packaging. Like I said, it didn't have barcodes. We only had that product, which was a red lipstick. And so I really didn't think we were going to get in. However, I still was going to put my best foot forward. I made a presentation, pitched, and yeah, out of our entire group, we were the only ones selected to launch at Ulta. Yeah.
Wow. What do you think was in your pitch that really, got the buyers to take notice and say yes?
I think, if I'm being honest, I simultaneously was in the Black Ambition accelerator at the time, and I had just won the $1 million. And I think that helped tremendously because now I was like, oh, okay, so I guess they have the money to launch. I obviously knew how to pitch well. And so I felt like my pitch to the buyers was pretty strong. And then, yeah, our story, I was like, you guys don't offer this. Your customers, your guests, Ulta calls their customers guests. Your guests deserve products specifically made for their skin and lip tone. And so that was the angle that I used, that, this is missing from your offering. So I think all those things combined is what helped us seal the deal.
Wow. So not even really thinking that you were actually going to get a yes at that point. Were you ready to go to retail at that time when it comes to, manufacturing and be able to support an MOQ requirement for that retailer?
Yes and no, right? But you fake it till you make it. And so we knew where to get barcodes. It's not something that's like dramatic. I think, and in terms of 3PL, I had some friends that were in the Glossier cohort that actually got into the Sephora Accelerated program and then later launched in Sephora. And so I was able to tap into my resources in my network and, just asking people, hey, I need a 3PL that's EDI compliant. I knew where to get barcodes. And yeah, I don't know. I've always networked. So I ended up, if I'm just going back a little bit, I got into a lot of programs in 2022. That was like my main thing, is like, all right, we gotta get more funding, and we gotta network more. And so I forgot, I also got into another program during 2022 that a skincare brand called Coco Kind had, and they were giving out like $8,000 to $10,000 grants to small Black-owned companies as part of their 2020 initiative to support Black-owned brands better. They created a program, so we got into that, and so I ended up getting a mentor out of that. Her name is Suzanne, and she became my mentor. Coco Kind is sold at Ulta. And so she became and it still is our advisor at Poundcake. I would say maybe more like a mentor. She doesn't have any equity, but she is like her title is Poundcake advisor. And she advises us because she really believes in what we're doing. And so I utilize Suzanne a lot getting ready to launch as well. And of course, lastly, Ulta was very supportive because, one, we had just gone through their program. Two, we were the only brand selected. And so they almost had a duty to ensure we had a successful launch. And so with all of the things I just mentioned, that's what helped us be successful with our launch.
Yeah. Were there any I know you said like barcodes, you had to make sure that you had barcodes, you didn't have it on the product. Was there anything else that you had to adjust from being able, selling your
Oh,
products?
yes. Oh, yes. We, I guess I didn't say this yet, but we actually launched in Credo before Ulta. So Credo is for anyone listening, it's the largest clean beauty retailer. It's more of a boutique, but I think they have 14 locations now. And they reached out to us, I think like 4 weeks after we launched our brand at the very end of 2021, interested in selling us there. And I always heard good things about Credo. I heard they're they're a great retailer to start instead of just throwing yourself into like a big, like an Ulta or a Sephora. And so we had actually already kind of understood how retail works. And one of the things we noticed was our packaging was really not standing out in Credo. We're like, okay, we are going to be an Ulta, which has like, it's a big store. And I think they hold, I think 600 plus brands. So we're like, if we're going to stand out, we really need to update our packaging. And yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think Ulta was too pleased about that when they found out that we were updating our packaging. But luckily, one of the things I learned in the accelerator that people that they brought in to talk to us, they were like, Ulta's great, but you're the owner. And, you need to learn to put your foot down if you feel strongly about something. It's okay to give Ulta pushback because ultimately this is your brand and you are going to be responsible whether things go well or they don't. And so I felt comfortable with the pushback I gave. I was like, listen, our packaging that we have, it gets dirty pretty quickly. It does not stand out. It really doesn't tell our story. I made it on Canva and we had, if anyone has our old packaging, like shout out to you. But I made it on Canva. It's what I could afford to do at the time, but I was like, we really need to level this up. With the million we had just won, we went to an agency in Australia and yeah, we ended up redoing our packaging. So that's what you see. I knew we always wanted to be yellow, but that's the packaging you see now. We have the yellow packaging. And so yeah, we had to go through that process. We ended up switching labs because we needed a lab that we could rely on. We knew, okay, we're going to be in Ulta. And if we get POs, we need to be able to we need a lab that's competent in so many words. And we knew we had to switch. And so we ended up hiring a product development consultant who had previously worked at Fenty Beauty and Pat McGrath and MAC Cosmetics, and a Black woman named Unique. And she ended up helping us source another lab that was credible. And I knew some of the other brands that they worked on were in Ulta. So I knew I could trust them. And so we ended up switching the lab. 2023 was really intense. I ended up, my hair started thinning. It's the first time in my life. I'd never been that stressed in my life. It was like, boom, you won $1 million. Boom, you're about to launch in retail for the first time. Boom, you need to change your packaging. You need to find a new warehouse. You need to hire a team, but not too much, because that $1 million goes by quickly and it's taxed. So it was just so much at once. It was so overwhelming, but we did it. And, here we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anyone that helped you to decide? I mean, because you're right, you get $1 million and it's like, what's the best way for me to utilize it to make sure that I'm set up for success? Was there someone that helped you to kind of understand how to spend that money?
No, I think, when you pitch for $1 million, they want to know that you know what to do with it. And so I had a plan that I, thought about. Let me take a step back. We were in the Black Ambition program. We were part of an accelerator and we were put into what they called pods. And it was just little groups that, people had similar businesses as yours. So I was put into a CPG group and my mentor was Rob Billard. He used to be the chief merchandising officer at HSN. I'm not sure if he's still there, but he had a successful brand that he launched at Sephora, and he had a brand before at Ulta years ago. So he helped me break down, okay, these are the things that you should consider when negotiating your contract with Ulta that will help your margins and stuff like that. And so from there, Johnny and I were able to come up with like a financial model that worked for us. And then, we pitched that. And so, the time we won the $1 million, whoever ends up winning, it's because you were able to, I guess, vocalize in the best way how you would utilize that money. You know, like they don't play. They even ran my credit, which I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, they do not play. And so yeah, I guess once you win any type of with Black Ambition specifically, I should say, not to deviate the conversation away from retail, but with Black Ambition real quick, you know, if you end up being a finalist, like you're getting money, which is great. And so it goes up to $1 million. So even the second prize winner got 250,000. That's a lot of money as
Oh my
well.
God.
And so yeah, I think they just like, they trust you that you know what to do with it. And so ended up just, yeah, tapping into my resources. Like I said, going back to Vanessa Whitman, who used to be she was the previous CFO of Glossier. She was like, oh my God, I'm going to hook you up with my financial team, you know, because she has a big coin. And so she was nice enough where we use her Merrill Lynch team, the people who handle her millions. She made an introduction, and to this day, they are still our financial management team of our money. We ended up getting an accounting firm that could help us each month handle our books and help with understanding our runway and how much we have left. And we put the money in a money accruing. Maybe before I wouldn't have known this, but you know, ensuring that your money is making money, so to speak, instead of just putting it in a bank account. I just ended up tapping into my resources as much as I could.
Yeah. I think that's a great lesson too for people listening, just, you know, making sure that you are building a community of people that you can lean on and get expertise from and help as you're kind of navigating these parts that you're not familiar with as you're growing your brand.
Yeah, 100%.
So once you won the money and then of course got accepted into Ulta and had to work on all of those changes from a packaging and product standpoint, how long did it take until you actually were on shelf?
Okay, so we found out December of 2022 that we were selected to launch in Ulta, and we ended up launching in Ulta October 15th of 2023. So this past October was just or end of October. Or it was a rollout. So the time we were like officially in all stores, it was November 1st. So this past November was a solid year that we've been in Ulta.
That's great. You launched in 800 stores, right?
Yes, we launched in 800 stores. We're now in 600. That changes. So we were going to launch in 500, and then they gave us an opportunity they were trying like a new store layout, and that was an extra 53 doors. So we're like, okay, cool, 53. And then as we were going through the process, my stress was just like wild in 2023. Like I said, they're like, hey, Camille, we have an opportunity called like the BIPOC Founders Table. It's temporary. It's only 2 months, but it'd be great exposure. And it's an additional 261 doors. And we're like, yeah, why not? And so combined, yes, we launched in over 800 doors. And then we went back down to 553, but now we're in over 600 doors as of today.
Wow. So you definitely grew from launch. Once you were in stores or actually even just preparing for stores, did you have a marketing plan? Like how were you going to get these consumers that were shopping online and shopping, you know, direct to consumer to now come into the Ulta stores and buy the product?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's really difficult, especially when you have limited funds. I mean, when we were in the accelerator, they were like, in order to be successful at Ulta, we recommend, you know, launching with 2 to 2.5 million. And we were like, all right, we only have less than $1 million because, like I said, it was tax. So our budget is like pretty tight in terms of like marketing because we got to make this last for however long. And we ended up just like Googling what other like small indie brands have done. We talked to Ulta. We ended up talking to our advisor, you know, Suzanne, who was head of sales at the time at Coco Kind. And so she kind of gave me some ideas of things that they were doing and things that we could do on a smaller scale. And so we ended up having like another photo shoot just so we could have like fresh photos that told our story a little bit better to be in stores. We started looking at some influencers that could really help us spread the word. And Ulta has, you know how Sephora has their Sephora squad. Ulta does have something equivalent called the Ulta Beauty Collective. And so we asked our buyer, like, can we get in touch with them to help us get the word out? We ended up hiring a PR consultant that helped with our launch plan to help us get press. And we ended up having, desk sides with editors in New York. And hosted luncheons with them. And what else? We knew we were going to boost some ads on Instagram. We did a really cool video. We hired one of the models that was on our site. Key to do, it's still like our pinned post on our Instagram. That little, if you go to our Instagram, we put together like this whole video that Ulta ended up sharing when we launched. And so, because yeah, you're right. We were like, okay, we need to ensure that people go in and buy us. And so those are all the things that like we could afford to do and knew that, that was within our range. And then Ulta explained to us, they're like, we are not the same as before. We are different in terms of launching, how the brands launch here is kind of like slow and steady wins the race, and it's kind of a gradual build. And so they kept, we kept freaking out of like, oh my God, we need to do this. And they're like, just calm down. It takes time. It takes time. And so, yeah, it was like a slow build. It wasn't like day one of like we launched and we sold out. It was not like that for us. And I would actually say now that we've been here a year, our sales have now like really picked up with our new launches and stuff like that. But it was slow, in the beginning, the first few months at Ulta. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, no, definitely be honest. But it sounds like you definitely had a plan on how to at least start to attract consumers. Did you just kind of switch it up and change based on what was working and what wasn't working as you continue to have space on shelf?
Yeah, I think we were like, okay, we kind of need to take a risk, so to speak. I think for me, like I've never seen that type of money before, like $1 million or more. And so in the beginning, I just was like so paranoid and really frugal, which I'm still happy about, because some people blow it within the first year. But yeah, I was really frugal, but I did have to kind of go out of my comfort zone and take a risk. And so we knew that, okay, we're seeing a lot of influencers really helping drive sales to the stores. And so we started seeding and gifting our product to influencers and then boosting ads, running ads. Like if they were do a video, asking them, hey, if we tag you, like, could we run this as an ad? Either people would get back and say no, or some people would be like, yeah, I love your products, go ahead. Some people would be like, it's going to be X fee, and if we couldn't afford it, we'd have to like, politely decline. But I think that's what has helped this past year, 2024, with our sales, was just like the seeding. We have a really good ad agency now, and the new products. And yeah, it's like those three main things. Like we don't even technically have like a PR firm anymore.
So that consultant that you hired was really just from the initial kind of launch of the brand?
Yeah.
Is it still now just you and your co-founder, Johnny, as full-time employees, or have you hired on additional people outside of consultant?
It's still just Johnny and I full-time, which a lot of people do not know. People are like, yeah, like, how do you, like, when they hear $1 million, you think that's a lot, but like, if you're going to have a team, let's just even say, in the beginning, we were not paying ourselves this, but let's just, everyone at first wanted me to pay myself $100,000. Well, if I pay myself $100,000, let's say I get 3 other people, that's already $400,000 just on salaries and nothing else, no marketing, no new product development, lab fees, storage, all of that. So we had to be lean and so, yeah, it's just, I think because Johnny and I, we've worked in nonprofit. I guess I didn't necessarily explain this in the beginning, but I still worked full time up until the middle of 2022. I was still like a full-time employee, just like doing this on the side. And so I think because Johnny and I come from the profit sector where, your salary is so shitty for the most part, we were used to like not making a lot. And so, yeah, right now it still is just Johnny and I full time. And then we have an operations consultant, and she works a full-time job, but consults for other brands, us, Coco Kind, some other brands. And then we recently in September hired a operations manager. And then we also have a TikTok intern that we pay monthly who runs our TikTok account. And then, yeah, we have like an influencer assistant, so to speak, where like her job is to like find influencers and send them to us for like a really small like hourly fee. But she still has like a full-time job as well. And so it's really lean, you know. We're not VC backed. So it's not like we've raised like 2 to 3 million so we can bring in like people and give them salaries. You know, it's still very, very lean.
Yeah, it sounds like too. I mean, you're hiring consultants that you can kind of bring in upon needed and not have to pay a full annual salary.
Yeah.
So, what would you say kind of is your biggest win when it comes to being in retail stores? Like, what would be your one takeaway?
What's our biggest win? I guess I'll do a takeaway. I mean, for us, our biggest win is just getting consistent POs. I mean, like when we first launched, you know, we were getting POs, but I think what worried me was before we launched, and I was speaking to some other founder friends who had launched before us, just trying to be like, what can I learn from you guys? Like any feedback from me before we are about to go in. It was scary because they were like, we haven't gotten a PO from Ulta in like 4 or 5 months. And that's kind of how it was at first for us too. Like we would get like small ones, but now we're getting consistent POs weekly. And so I think that is a huge win that shows that the marketing efforts that we've been putting in are working. And then my biggest takeaway, there's a lot, I guess, of learnings, is I guess never bite off more than you can chew and always be transparent and upfront. Sometimes there's things Ulta wants us to do, and I'm just like, you know, we can't afford it. So unless this is how much we would need, and not being scared.
Yeah.
You know, there are times like there were times some mentors would be like, you know, or they weren't mentors. I guess sometimes there would be people on our team that were like, you know, I don't know, I don't know if we should say no because I don't want Ulta to get upset with us. And I'm like, that's not why you say yes or no, because I can keep saying yes. And then if I go bankrupt, it's not like they're gonna look at me and be like, you know, so you should never do something just because you're scared that someone's going to be mad at you. It should always come from a place of financial planning and management. So that's been my biggest takeaway, has been I've never been, there are times I am nervous, but I guess I should say I've never been scared to the point where I do not vocalize what I can and cannot do. And so I would, you know, say to anyone who's listening that is in retail, you know, not just saying yes because you're quote scared, but saying yes or no because it's like, hey, if I participate in this, how much is it going to cost me? Asking those questions up front instead of just blindly saying yes to everything. And asking for support. Oh, I do want to participate in this program really, you know, badly, but I need X amount of money from you guys to help support me. And yeah, so I guess that's my biggest takeaway. And like I've always said throughout this journey, closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to kind of speak up for what you want or don't want when it comes to retail. Yeah.
That's a powerful, powerful learning. Just because you're right, a lot of people, if they hear, oh, you're going to get in, you know, all the Ulta stores or Walmarts, they say yes without even understanding or knowing if it's right for them, if they have the money to fund it, if they can support it. Or, you know, even to your point, changing a retailer asking to change packaging and it may not be the true core of what your brand is. So I think that's just a really great and powerful message to a lot of people that are listening.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what's the future goals for Poundcake? What does 2025 look like for the brand?
We plan on launching a new product this year, still in the lip category, and one hopefully at the top of next year. That's also in the lip category. And then I think, you know, by 2026, we'll graduate from the lips. We really wanted to like dominate the lip category and tell our story there before we move to other offerings and parts of the face. And so we plan to do that this year. We plan to continue doing better community building on just, well, again, we had, you know, goals last year that we put in place for TikTok, but considering, I mean, with TikTok being censored and then it's only like available as of right now for the next 75 days, I can't even really share what our plans are for TikTok, but like, I guess I'll give more general plans is just, we want to continue doing more community building. We want to work on our new product launches. We want to make sure that we're focusing on both our D2C and Ulta. We don't and Credo. We never want to be 100% reliant on a retailer. We determined that last year, just to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for success. And then lastly, I think we just want to, it's kind of hard to say, we're just like, as of right now, just taking things day by day. But yeah, we want to continue building our community and yeah, work on our new product launches for this year.
So where can listeners follow your journey and support and buy Poundcake?
Okay, so you can buy Poundcake on poundcake.com. We're also sold on Ulta Beauty, Ulta.com, as well as CredoBeauty.com, as well as in both stores. We also have a store locator on poundcake.com should you be interested in trying out our products in person, so you can find the nearest store near you. Hopefully, we'll be at Cult Beauty, which is a UK retailer, by the end of this year.
Amazing.
And yeah, thank you. And maybe on Forward, they actually just reached out to us and we have a meeting with their buyer on Friday. So maybe Forward, the e-retail. And you can follow us on Instagram at Poundcake. On TikTok, we're at Poundcake Official. Should TikTok still be up and running, the time this comes out. And you can find us on Twitter at Poundcake.
And I'll make sure that I list all of those in the show notes.
Thank you.
And I'm wearing raspberry today. I just bought it the other day and I love it. I mean, it's soft. It lasts. I wore it yesterday and it lasts for hours. Me and my girlfriends are always looking for a lip gloss that actually stays on your lips for a long period of time. That's a challenge. It really is.
Yes.
But this definitely has. And I just love this, how it's soft and it moisturizes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. That means a lot. That's all the key elements that you hit that's what we were talking about. And that's what we really wanted people to enjoy is like it's moisturizing and it lasts. And the color pigment payoff. So that means a lot to me. And I'm so glad. I really appreciate the support. Seriously.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, definitely. And thank you, Camille, for coming on Shelf Talks. I mean, this was such a great discussion. I think it's definitely a takeaway for people to hear your story because of the resilience of just getting it off the ground and getting a finalized product. And then all of the ways you've utilized in order to get funding to help support and grow your business, I think is not only a testament to you and the brand that you've created, but I think it's just going to help a lot of people to understand, like, if they're at those stages that you were talking about early on, to keep going and pushing through. And then also just standing for your brand, even when you're in retail, and making sure that you're doing the right things that you believe in the product and your brand growth. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.